You want to know something? I think this is like the 10th time it feels like that I'm recording this video. I had to re-record it so many times because I kept screwing it up. So this is the last time. Let's go. Okay, so I've been in Melbourne for about a year now, and I just wanted to share a couple of things I wish I had known before I moved to Melbourne. I wanted to share that. Hopefully, it would make your journey, your transition move to Melbourne a bit smoother, easier. Hopefully, it helps. So, I'm going to touch on a couple different things. First off, visa. Obviously, I think everyone needs to think about the visa situation, admin related shit, public transport, healthcare, lifestyle, cost of living, and then the rental space. So, visa wise, I'm a New Zealand citizen, which means that I don't actually have to apply for a visa. Very fortunate to be in that position. So, I can straight away come to Melbourne, work here, live here indefinitely. But if you're not a New Zealand citizen, I would highly recommend checking out your working rights, how long you can live here in Melbourne. And then in terms of public transport, we have something called Myki card, MYKI card. And that helps. Well, you need to use that if you want to use the public transport for buses, trams, trains. You can actually buy one and top one up at the Melbourne International Airport, and you can find one in any train station around Melbourne. What else? So you also should download the PTV app, which is the public transport app that we use here in Melbourne. It also tells you how expensive the public fare is going to be, which is great. You can also top up and check your Myki balance on the app. And I think there's also a way to get a digital Myki thing set up so you can actually just use your phone to pay for fares. I don't have that set up. I have a physical card, but I think that's possible. So that's probably easier if you want to set that up. And also, what they've introduced since 16th of March this year, 2026, is contactless payments across these suburbs: Craigburn, Upfield, Ballarat, and Seymour train lines. So essentially, you can use your MasterCard or Visa card, um, your digital wallet to essentially pay for the train fare for those suburbs. I don't know if they're going to roll this out across Melbourne, but hopefully they do. I think they'll just make things easier. If someone forgot their Myki card, for example, that will come in handy. Okay, so now the admin sort of things to check off your list. First thing would be getting your TFN number sorted. So that's the tax file number. I downloaded the ATO app to help set that up. You would need to get this number and give this to your employer before you can actually start working, for tax purposes. And then the myGov app is basically your main government account. And you can use it to access things like your tax, Medicare, and other services all in one place. And then you also have myID, which is just your ID, digital ID sort of app that you have with you. And also Medicare. So just talking about um, which is basically Australia's public healthcare system. With that helps pay for your medical expenses essentially. So without Medicare, I know I didn't have Medicare when I first came to Melbourne, and I had a GP visit, and it costed me $70 just for a regular GP visit. It could cost you now around $70 to $80 at the minimum. And also, I think that's the kind of average price for any GP visit without a Medicare cost, just a general GP check like visit. Okay, with the Medicare, it's half the price. So you can do the math. You're going to save a shit ton of money. So get your Medicare card if you're eligible, and you have to apply for it. You don't automatically just get it. Okay. Funny enough, I did some research here, and Medicare is only offered to countries that have a reciprocal healthcare agreement with with Australia. Okay, so These countries don't get Medicare. So here's a list: US, Canada, India, China, Singapore, Malaysia, Philippines, Indonesia, South Korea, Japan, South Africa, most of the Middle East, and also most of the South America. So here are the list of countries that have access to Medicare: Belgium, Finland, Netherlands, New Zealand, Norway, Republic of Ireland, Slovenia, Sweden, UK, and then for some reason Italy and Malta limited to 6 months only. Okay, I have no idea why, but there you go. After I set up myGov, myID, ATO to get my TFN number, and also Medicare app, I've never once used any of them. Medicare, once you apply for it, you get your physical card, and you can just use that to get the rebates automatically. That's very easy. So there's also private health insurance. So you could get charged with Medicare Levi surcharge. It's only if you earn over $101,000 as a single or $202,000 as a couple. And if you don't have private health insurance, you will get hit with this extra tax of 1.5% of your income. But if you want to avoid paying that tax, you just need to ensure that you have a private health insurance. So essentially, it's kind of a scam. They're forcing you to have some sort of private healthcare insurance. Okay. So there is a way to go around it to save a bit of money. So you can find a private healthcare insurance and pay a bit less by limiting the insurance benefits that you get. Okay. I used this website called Compare the Market and ended up going with AHM insurance and only got like dental benefits because that's all I needed at this stage in my life. And I managed to save a little bit of money compared to just spending 1.5% of my income to tax, right? So it just makes sense. You kind of have to go and get a private healthcare insurance. Otherwise, it is pretty much a scam, honestly, which I kind of hate. You shouldn't have to be forced to pay for health insurance that you don't really need at this stage. But anyways, that is what it is. Driving license side of things. Okay, so I have a full New Zealand driver's license, and it was pretty easy for me to convert it to a Victorian license. Went to Vic Roads in CBD, got that sorted, very smooth, very easy. In a couple weeks' time, I received my Victorian license, and I can drive. I think I need to still have like a probation plate or something like that. But then after a year or two, I think I should get my full license. So basically, you will get your full Victorian license if you have New Zealand full driver's license. Okay. Now there are some companies where, oh my god, not companies, some countries where you would need to still do some kind of like theory and driving test. Okay, so these are the countries: India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Philippines, Indonesia, Vietnam, Thailand, Malaysia, China, Sri Lanka, Nigeria. Many African and South American countries varies widely by state rules. So if you are a citizen of any of a citizen of one of these countries, oh my god, I can't speak. Then you still can drive on your overseas license temporarily for like a couple months, but then after that you have to get a Victorian learner permit. Yeah, and then you have to pass theory test and driving test, and then you get a provisional license before full license. Just double check how long you can temporarily drive. I think it might vary by state or by country. I'm not too sure, so just do that research. But yeah, so just keep that in mind if you want to drive around in Victoria, if you plan to get your own car, that sort of stuff. Now let's talk about rental property scene here in Victoria. It's been a bitch, honestly, rental market for me. It's so competitive, especially earlier on in the year, like Jan, Feb, March. It's very competitive because there are a lot of international students coming to Melbourne. and also migrants coming in. So it can be very, very competitive, especially in Melbourne CBD, right? That's where a lot of the students go. Um, and it's still competitive in the inner suburbs. If it's a good property, it will still be competitive. One thing to note with rental properties is that the landlord is typically going to look for a 12-month lease. So you're usually going to lock yourself into a 12-month lease. So make sure you find the right property. And the landlords generally look for someone who has previous rental history, a rental ledger, which basically is a list, like a transaction list to show that you've been paying your landlord every month, rent, it's on time, that sort of stuff. And um, 3 months worth of pay slips, employment agreement copy, bank statement, uh, reference checks from your manager and also from your previous landlord or property agent, and obviously ID checks. I think that's pretty much it. They essentially need assurance that you can comfortably afford the rent for 12 months. And with rental properties, so I generally used realestate.com.au to look at any rental property listings. That's the main website I use. You can also use Domain, up to you. And for me personally, just to give you some insights, I was looking for properties that were furnished, somewhat close to work. I work at working in CBD, so maybe 30, 40 minutes max. I wasn't looking for something that was going to take me too long to get to work. Close to public transport, somewhat close to the supermarket, gym, a clean house, clean bathroom, internal laundry, good amount of natural light coming in. So obviously you can't, like, from what I've learned, you're not going to find a property that ticks all of your boxes unless you pay a shit ton of money, right, per week. For the properties that, so it was furnished properties, and for the properties that I was looking for average weekly rent, Melbourne CBD or even inner suburbs, it was going to be around $550 to $600 per week, excluding utilities. I know it's very expensive for a single person. So take that into account if you are going to look for similar sort of properties. I think unfurnished properties will be cheaper and there are more options there. It makes sense if you want to move to Melbourne and stay in Melbourne for a couple of years. Then it just makes sense to get your own furniture. You might save money by doing that. Me, I just wanted furnished. I don't know how long I'll stay in Melbourne, so that's kind of why I wanted the property to be furnished. Just personal sort of reasons. And when I first came to Melbourne, I think I inspected around 30 properties, couldn't find a suitable one because this was early April-ish. Just couldn't find a suitable one and didn't want to lock myself in for 12 months in a place that just didn't feel right. So I just wanted to find the right one in the right neighborhood, which luckily I have found now. At that point, when I first came to Melbourne, I ended up Airbnb-ing for the first couple of weeks, and then using flatmates to flat with a stranger. Luckily, I found a good flatmate who was clean, quiet, and the property was furnished. It was quite nice building. It was in CBD, really nice amenities. It included gym, sauna, pool, all that, and it was a lot cheaper than paying rent. I think I was paying like $450 included utilities. So flatting is obviously going to be cheaper, but you're going to be staying with a stranger, so take that into account. And that was had my own private bathroom and also obviously private bedroom and room, but it was a smaller sort of room, less spacious. And you have to be more considerate because you're sharing the property, noise and all that, so be mindful. So, and also just now talking about the lifestyle, cost of living. Cost of living, I feel like everywhere, even in New Zealand, especially New Zealand, it's gone up, right? Groceries are expensive. utilities have gone up, rent has gone up, property prices have gone up. Everything's just going up through the roof. But compared to Auckland, where I'm from, I think Melbourne, there's definitely more career opportunities, more job opportunities. You're getting paid more money. Wages are a little bit more higher compared to Auckland. I think Auckland's economy, New Zealand's economy in general, is kind of shit at the moment. It's been like that for a couple of years now, and you can kind of see why. There's a lot of New Zealanders moving to Australia. That's been a general trend over the last couple of years, especially. I can definitely see why. I think living standards are much better compared to Auckland. I can kind of see why it's been rated one of the best cities to live in the world. Um, you have to factor in wage, living standards. What does Melbourne have to offer? All of that. I can see it definitely being better than Auckland for sure, but it is also more fast paced. It's also more competitive. Um, I feel like compared to Auckland, I know I'm comparing this to Auckland, but that's just I'm from Auckland. It's obviously a much bigger version of Auckland, I feel like, plus trams. Auckland doesn't have any trams. There's more things to do here. Coffee scene is incredible here. There's so many specialty coffee roasters. They're so into their coffee, which I love. I've been exploring that coffee scene, going to a lot of different art exhibitions, food markets. There's workshops. Last one I made a video on gin masterclass workshop, but I've been to so many different workshops here in Melbourne. I'm not saying there aren't any workshops in Auckland. There are, but I feel like there's more variety here. There's higher turnaround here, even with jobs. There's definitely more food options here. It makes sense. Melbourne's population is 5 million, which is pretty much New Zealand's entire population. So there's a lot of people. It's very fast paced, but I also feel like has a nice community vibe, especially here in Fitzroy, the suburb. Even Brunswick, I feel like, is a bit more laid back. Fitzroy is very lively. There's a lot of things happening here. I've been enjoying living in Melbourne so far. It's been a year enjoying it. It's great. I would highly recommend people to come have a look, see what it's like to live in Melbourne. Um, yeah, hopefully this video helps you if you are thinking about moving to Melbourne. Yeah, that's all I had to say. Thanks for watching.